So this is Welcome to Flow Conversations. This is conversations with individuals talking about thriving and human flourishing, and in practical terms, what it means to them and what it means to organizations that they may work with or things or organizations that they advise. So Michael, I just want to start off by saying thank you and welcome to the conversation. This should be free-ranging. You should be able to just relax. Thanks so much for joining us today. I wanted to start out by just asking you what thriving means to you personally.
To me, it means spending your time on what you care about, feeling good about it, feeling enthusiastic about what you're doing, and having the control to make sure that your desires and your priorities turn into your realities.
Yeah, sounds great. Do you feel like you're thriving?
I feel I'm thriving in some areas and need a little bit of work in others. I don't think it's one of those goals that you fully achieve. I think it's one of those things where you always want to thrive more. And once you get comfortable and satisfied with your level of thriving, you go, why can I do a little better than that? So the answer is kind of a yes. I think I'm doing better than I've done in the past. I think I'm doing better than some other people. But however good I do, I always want to do a bit more, thrive a little bit more.
Yeah. Do you think that's a common way? Like, should people feel stressed that they don't feel that they're thriving all the time?
Well, if you feel stressed about not thriving, then you're thriving even less. So back to the Serenity Pair to accept the things that you are out of your control and work towards the things that really that you can improve. And part of thriving is having that sense that you can actually have control of your life and make it better. If you don't have the sense or you're frustrated, you're not doing well enough, then you kind of aren't thriving.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something we feel very deeply, myself doing work sort of in this space. There are certainly moments of stress and times when I feel, am I really thriving? I feel a lot of compulsion to say like, yeah, should be. But I think it's really important to say like, it's just a direction. It's like real balance. It's like you're striving towards it. Doesn't mean you're always there, right? But you've got a direction, and it's a helpful direction and a vision for how you could be in your optimal functioning and balancing all the things in your life. At least that's how I think about it. And I've really worked hard to say, I want to just get rid of that feeling that if I am going through tough moments, that I can just embrace that and say that's part of the journey, right? It's not that there's no way that I'm failing.
Yeah, and it's never a matter of failing, and it's taking some of those moments out of your control and recognizing you have a bit more control. You always have more control to control your attitude than you realize in the immediate moment. And if you can take that effort to control your attitude and control your time, it's never perfect. There'll be things like you feel like you have to do, but even just recognizing it, that you're doing those things you have to do because you have a higher purpose that you care about even more, that also just makes you thrive a little bit more. It's kind of, again, it's controlling your time and not feeling that the world's being imposed on you and you're just a victim of it and you can do things. And there are people who have situations which they are victims and their lives are much harder to control. And I mean, frankly, I think we both have lives where we have a much greater ability to direct our days and manage our time and create our futures than most. And so we should be appreciative of that we can do those things, and we try to do it even more and try to help others as well at the same time.
Yeah. Do you have a practice yourself like that helps you like recognize when you pause and say like, actually, I have more control than I think?
I don't necessarily have a practice, but I have gaps in my time where I don't try to fill it in. I've found over time that doing nothing sometimes can be quite productive. Frankly, for me, one of the things is just driving when I just turn off the radio and sit in complete silence is a time of doing nothing, and valuing some of those times of doing nothing and not feeling like they all need to be filled in with the latest buzz or keeping up with whatever. That sometimes it's interesting. I don't tend to have a meditative process where I sit and do nothing per se, but I make times for myself to do that type of thing. And what's interesting is when I kind of make the space, my mind tends to wander to whatever I feel is most important. Not because I'm trying to, but that's just how the mind works. And sometimes I come out of those moments with ideas, solutions, or new ways of thinking that I never would have otherwise. So just allowing for that.
Yeah. I found that as I've been diving into like sort of much more of the deep work area, I've been taking more and more time to just have those moments of quiet. I think that I've tried meditative practice. I still am trying. I found that it's been very helpful for me to find that small space between the perception of especially a stressful thing and the reaction, so that I have a little bit more latitude. But the thing that's helped me the most recently is just those parts of my day where previously I would have sought some distraction, and there's certainly lots of distraction around us, and instead have just been without it, sitting and having a cup of tea with nothing in front of me.
Yeah, I've also found that I sometimes schedule times after what I consider an intense interaction, like a very important meeting. And I just schedule time to go for a walk afterwards, to digest it, to just clear my head or whatever it might be. And I find those wasted moments are some most valuable moments, because it helps you get the full value out of the intense time and possibly redirect how you act. So in the effort to be productive, I think there's a tendency to people to always want to do. And sometimes when you don't do, you kind of figure out how to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Or the right way.
Yeah. That seems like an important skill sort of for everyone to cultivate, but I see that there is a lot of things that go against it. And this ties a little bit to the next question, which is really, you've had a lot of experience both running organizations as CIO of Harvard Health, now as Chief Medical Officer of Acesis, but you're also an executive coach, and you help guide other organizations. We've worked together on a project related to physician burnout, helping to address this need across, organizational groups. When I think about managers who are thinking about thriving, or they might talk about, oh, it's important to take a break after an important meeting, and you go for a walk, but then you imagine yourself being the manager, seeing your employees do this. How can that come out? How could that be? How could we think differently about being a leader within an organization and helping the people within the organization to thrive? Can we let them do these things that many other people would look at and say, your people are always taking breaks? What's going on here?
Yeah, and I think this is something that's probably I've been thinking more so during this time when so much work is remote. And one of the challenges as a leader is to evaluate people less by how they look like they're doing and more by what they produce. And it's hard work to be a manager or a leader and get into the details. But you hear comments from people, such as, if I don't see them working, how do I know they're working? And if you say that, you don't know how they're working. You need to be able to know what their work is. You need to know what's a reasonable expectation. And you need to have dialogues with people to say, what are they running into? What are the challenges? What are the obstacles? And through that, you get a pretty good sense of how hard people are working. So effectively, this may sound counterintuitive. I actually think when you focus on the outcomes rather than how hard they appear to be working, people can take the break and you just don't care. I was coaching someone recently who had an employee who wasn't as committed to the work as he was saying, because he left every day at 5:00. And I said, well, how's his production? He said, oh, he produces more than anyone. I said, what do you care? If he leaves at 5:00 and he's getting everything done, learn from him. That's your best employee. But if you're focused on how long they appear to be in the office, you're rewarding what you really shouldn't be caring about. And thriving, if people are more productive as they thrive, then that's great. But whatever it is, don't hold it against them that they're doing whatever they feel is needed for them if they're producing. You need to be looking at the outcomes. And so again, it sounds a little counterintuitive, because sometimes people think about outcomes making the numbers, as being a tough boss. But I'm actually more concerned with the boss who wants people to look busy, who wants people to put on the show. And people make a lot of effort at work putting on the show. And if they could put that effort into real production, they would accomplish a whole bunch more.
Yeah. That's, I could see how with direct reports and you're really sort of achieving a specific focus that could matter. Can this matter even higher up? So say you've got hundreds of people reporting to you, but there's sort of this chain of command. Could you possibly spend the time needed to understand how each person does their role, or do you have to?
Well, if you have 100 people reporting to you, probably not. But you should have some intermediary person who can do that, and you do it with them. So it's kind of that same thing. If if your direct report is managing a bunch of people and they are producing, and you see someone going for a leisurely walk, it's none of your business. Let them go for a leisurely walk. Focus on the outcomes, and then people can take the time to thrive. You shouldn't be, again, training people to put on a show for you. That's a very expensive thing to do. It's a lot of effort, and people can be, and it's so easy. The reality is, people can look busy while scrolling through a news feed. You can't tell when someone is really busy. And if you start making them put on the show for things that don't really matter, then you're not really serving anyone. So I think there's things you can do to create environments to thrive. But the one I'm actually mentioning now is, don't assume people who take care of themselves are not working hard. If they produce, they're doing what they need to do. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. The other part of sort of thriving is that it's often considered very soft. So organizations, well, this is for organizations who have lots of money and can spend time on it. Do you think, is it valuable or even realistic for organizations to try to think about creating an organization where people thrive?
There's some data, I don't know the specifics of it, from the Gallup organization, talking about what % of employees are engaged.
Yes.
And it's somewhere in the 30% range. It's something
23.
It's 23. Okay, I didn't know that exact number, but it's pretty small. And then there's a group that's actively disengaged. These are the people who want your organization to fail, which is not insignificant. So it's amazing that organizations can be productive at all, given those stats, given the stats that people are not engaged and many of them are actively disengaged. And in that context, thriving doesn't seem like a luxury anymore. It seems like if you can create something to make people more engaged, help them feel good about what they're doing, want to accomplish, work together, and all that sort of stuff, to me, it seems like an imperative. Now, I'm not saying that giving a few meditation and yoga classes is going to turn everything around for you. It's not that simple. But I do think it's important for people to have a purpose, to know what their roles are, to feel that they're supported. And to some extent, if they feel that, again, they can't, let's say, take the whole day off and basically say, I've been productive. But if they're doing their work and they find that there are things that they could do that don't look productive, but are for them, then let them do it. What's the big deal? I think the disengaged workforce is so much more expensive than the cost of the thriving programs. Again, the proof has to be that the thriving programs that actually used actually lead to engagement. That's a lot of them don't. But to discount them immediately is just not appropriate either.
Yeah. As I've been doing a lot more of this work, I've been realizing that a lot of this is actually centered around creating environments which support cognitive high performance, right? We've seen a lot of it. People somehow find it easy to talk about in the athletic world, but really hard to talk about in the knowledge work world, right? Which is 90% of us now in the United States. So I would say that I wanted to test a statement with you, and then you can critique it, which is that, yes, you can extract cognitive high performance out of people by creating a stress vice, right? I want you to sleep under your desk. We're going to do this thing. That's what you have to do. And for a period of time, you can get some high performance from people. But there's no way that is sustainable for them. The only way to create sustainable cognitive high performance is to create an environment where people thrive. It's the foundation that enables this one in a sustained way. That's the reason for it.
Yeah, I actually I agree with it, but I think it's not so much the issue of it's sustainable. It's the wrong type of budget of production. If you want to incentivize a pigeon to peck at a pellet, pecking is a relatively simple task. If there are tasks which are incredibly well defined, and if the amount of effort is all that matters to success, then frankly, some of those pressure tactics may work in some of those environments. But if you're trying to do cognitive work, creative ideas, good customer service, or any of those other things, pressure of the type we're talking about is actually dysfunctional. It actually draws away from it. And if even worse, if you have an environment where you hold individuals highly accountable in an individual way, and the success is really much more dependent on team interaction, you're actually incentivizing in what matters most for success. And so it may actually be counterproductive in some environments. I think you got to look at your environment and what you're expecting of people and what really would motivate them. For the deep work, which is the creative work and the coming up with wonderful ideas, I don't think people come up with great ideas when they're really focused on their own self-well-being and safety. Right. And if you really want to basically have someone come up with a great, brilliant idea, with the highest Maslow hierarchy of needs of self-actualization, worrying about their safety, worrying about their how they're going to be seen, worrying about themselves at all is the exact opposite of what you want them to be doing, where they should be coming up with their best ideas.
Yeah, great. Well, Michael, thanks.